Hey everyone, I'm Mark Morgan, and today we're going to take a look at the 7th and 8th grade mid-state jazz trumpet audition music. I Got the Swing Flute is in a straight-ahead swing style. This style is not the swing style of the big band era of the 1930s and 40s. In modern terms, this refers to the bebop style. When a lot of young musicians are taught swing rhythms early on, we're told that 2 eighth notes in swing should be played as a quarter note, eighth note triplet rhythm. Now this doesn't accurately reflect how we phrase in the bebop language. Bebop has a little smoother and more linear phrasing. Let's take a look at the first measure, for example. You have a quarter note followed by 4 eighth notes, an eighth note rest, and then another eighth note tied into the next measure. If you were to play that measure in an early swing style, it would sound like this. But in bebop, it would sound like this. Notice how the bottom notes almost get swallowed up and the upper notes in the phrase get an accent. And this is what gives a phrase the characteristics of playing in the jazz style. The absolute best way to learn the style correctly is to do massive amounts of listening to established musicians. Try to emulate what they're playing by singing along, and this is called scat singing. Your ultimate goal is to be able to play on your instrument the way you would scat it. In this piece, pay particular attention to the dynamics and the articulations that are marked. Going into the second measure, it's very typical to play a sforzando at the beginning of a long note and crescendo through it. For the first 8 measures, think like a big band lead trumpet player, playing very boldly and leading a section. On bar 9, you have to suddenly drop to a soft dynamic. Now think like you're playing in a small jazz combo. You're still using the same phrasing, but you don't need to play as boldly. And that begins to change in bar 16 when you have a new rhythm and dynamic. On the half note, notice that I'm playing another sforzando and crescendoing through to beat 4. I'm also doing a hard cutoff with my tongue on the 4th beat, and this is another common technique that's used in jazz. The next 4 bars are like the beginning, so use the same phrasing as before. On bar 21, suddenly get softer and grow until the big finish at the end. Con Carne is in a salsa style. I love this style of music and it's actually my favorite style to perform. Notice that I start in measure 3 of the backing track, and there's a specific reason for that. Salsa or Afro-Cuban music is different from other styles of music because it has a 2-bar rhythmic pattern that ties the entire piece together, and we call this the clave. Now this is a vast topic, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to just briefly discuss the clave and what it means to this piece. The clave has 2 forms, 2-3 and 3-2. In 2-3, you have a 2-note rhythmic pattern in the first measure and a 3-note rhythmic pattern in the second measure, and it sounds like this. In 3-2, the rhythms are reversed. You have a 3-note pattern in the first measure and a 2-note pattern in the second measure, and that sounds like this. Listen for the clave in the backing track, and this will help you play the piece more accurately. This piece is clearly in 3-2 because the rhythms in the melody line up with the 3-2 clave. In the salsa style, we don't phrase exactly the same as we would in bebop. although there are some similarities. In salsa, it's a little straighter than jazz, and we use more of a forward or crisper articulation, especially on shorter notes. In jazz, we sometimes think about laying back on the beat, but in salsa, we really need to stay more on top of the beat. Again, listening to this style of music is the best way to learn how to play it accurately. Make sure you're playing very accurate rhythms in measures 1, 3, and 5. In measure 7, notice that I'm playing long eighth notes and shorter quarter notes. I'm also crescendoing through each of these notes, and this adds a little more intensity to the music. In measure 9, you're playing at a softer dynamic, but don't shy away from playing aggressively. Even though it's softer, that doesn't mean you need to lay back on the phrasing. Still play with a nice full sound in the lower register. The final line starting at measure 15 has the same rhythmic pattern as measure 7. I'm going to slightly crescendo through each of those notes until the big finale at the end. Even though it's not marked, I'm playing a sforzando on the last note and crescendoing through it, even adding a little bit of vibrato, and this signals a big finish to the end of the piece. Guys, I hope you found this video helpful. If you have questions or would like to learn more about these styles, feel free to get in touch. I also have other videos on this channel teaching you how to become a better trumpet player, so be sure to check those out. So have fun working on these pieces and good luck at your audition.